Three, two, one, liftoff.
That's one small step for man.
Contact with a test one.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome to what we hope is going to be a launch. I streamed for a little bit yesterday, right when I found out that they scrubbed. Weather is currently red for this launch of a Falcon 9 booster carrying CSG-2, but it is trending towards clear, and they have already begun prop loading the vehicles. So they are going for it. So we will be, we'll be tuning in, seeing if we actually get to catch this launch today. This launch is going to be fun, and I'll tell you why. Because we're going to be doing a pre-launch preview here first. Anytime you guys have any questions about, when is a rocket launching? Where is it launching from? What's it doing? Will it be landing? Does it have new fairings? All of those questions that you have that I see all the time still on Twitter, like, hey, what's the deal with this mission? We've got you covered. Anytime you have any questions about launches, just go over to everydayastronaut.com and click on pre-launch previews. And there you can find an awesome article that's hopefully will help you guys out. So this is our article for CSG-2, Falcon 9. It's a Block 5. This is going to be taking off hopefully here. Oh, not scrubbed. Ooh, I forgot. Crap. I knew inactive. I knew I forgot something. All right, there we go. That's our current. It's not scrubbed for now. So ignore my bad thing over there. But now the clock should be decentish. It should be taking off here at 23:11 UTC. That's going to be 6:11 p.m. Eastern. And the mission name is CSG-2. The launch provider for this, of course, is SpaceX. This is a SpaceX launch on their rocket, but the customer is the Italian Space Agency. So they're the ones that have these satellites that want the satellite that wants it to get into space. This is the second generation or second version of this satellite, and they paid SpaceX to get it to its destination. So the rocket, this is the Falcon 9 Block 5 booster 1052-3. So that's the third flight of this booster. It's not a very flown booster, and there's a reason why. This is a pretty low number booster these days. I mean, we're up into the 60s and all that stuff. So, 1052-3, that's not very far. And the reason is this is actually a converted Falcon Heavy side booster. So one of the side boosters from a Falcon Heavy, they literally took the nose cone off of it and replaced it with an inner stage and basically turned it into a Falcon 9. I mean, they're more or less relatively the same, but there was some conversion process there. Pretty cool. And this will be launching from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The payload mass for this is about 2,200 kilograms, so just shy of 5,000 pounds. Not very heavy for the Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 can carry about 8 times more than that, basically. Where are these satellites going to go? They're going to be going to sun-syncronous orbit, which is basically slightly retrograde. Just making sure I'm not seeing, making sure that I'm not missing anything from you guys. I do have the launch audio in the background too, so you guys will hear if there's some kind of update. But I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, sun-synchronous orbit is basically, it's similar to polar orbit, but it's actually beyond polar orbit. So a 0 degree inclination would be an orbit that's basically around the equator. 45 degrees, would be like 45. A 90 degree orbit would be the ones going over the poles. This is 97.86. That's what sun-synchronous orbits are actually slightly beyond polar. They're actually flying a little bit retrograde. Which is pretty crazy. They're going to be launching west from Florida, which means they have to go down around a bunch of stuff so they don't overfly any land in any populated areas. Pretty crazy. So All right. Will they be attempting to recover the first stage? Yes. That's why this is a fun mission to watch. The other reason why it's fun, because this will be landing back at land at landing zone 1, LZ1, right there at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Just a few kilometers away from where it took off. These are always super exciting to watch. But also notice that right now the sun is basically setting right now in Florida. So what's cool is it'll be dark-ish on the ground, but it'll be illuminated in the sky. So it's also going to be a return to launch site landing and a twilight phenomenon. You know, not backlit. It's front lit illuminated, but it'll still be really pretty. So yeah, did I write backlit in that tweet? Crap. Okay, so anyway, will they be attempting to recover the fairings? Yes. These fairings are not new. They've flown on 3 previous missions, so the fairings are older than the booster. It's kind of crazy. The weather is currently 70% go. Like we said, as of the moment, it's actually red. They are not go for launch at this moment, but they are still pushing through because they have, the weather can clear up in 23 minutes. So we will have to see. This is the 138th Falcon 9 launch ever. That is crazy. I remember saying like when it was like the 30th or something. I mean, I remember when this was, geez, that's just crazy to think about. The second return to launch site landing mission of this year. They already had another one this year for Transporter 3. The 82nd reflight of a booster. The 30th consecutive landing, which will be a record. It's an ongoing record at this point. The 4th reflight of a booster in 2022. The 4th launch for SpaceX in 2022 already, so that's averaging 1 a week pretty much. 8th orbital launch attempt of 2022 altogether. So pretty nuts. If you guys want to read more about this and about the actual satellite, the Skymed Second Generation Earth observation satellite, pretty cool stuff actually. So go ahead and read that. We'll probably learn a little bit more about it from SpaceX during the live stream, but we will have to wait to hear that. Pretty awesome stuff here. So if you guys ever have any questions about this stuff, again, everydayastronaut.com. We've got you covered with our pre-launch previews. And everyone say thank you to Austin for writing this particular article, which is very good and very deep. So yeah, hope that's always a good resource for all of you that are waiting for anything spaceflight related. So it's been a little while since I've actually had just a normal old live stream like this. It's been a while. My goal for the years, I do want to try to live stream, once or twice a month. I do miss it now, which is kind of what I was waiting for. I was waiting to get to the point where like, yeah, I miss those. I got really burnt out from them for a little bit. But, for certain missions like this one's going to be super cool because it's return to launch site landing. Will be, a little bit of twilight phenomenon. It should be really pretty. So, I thought this would be kind of a special one to stream. It's just been a little while. I wanted to say hi, let you know that I'm still alive and working on some fun stuff. So, yeah. So don't forget, guys, I'm going to get there's a handful of good questions and some super chats here that I'm going to get to. Don't forget, guys, the reason I do these streams is to help answer questions for you guys. So if you have questions, you don't have to super chat or anything. Our mods, if they see a good question, they'll pull it and get it in front of me. I can put it up on screen. So if you ask a good question and it's relevant, chances are we might see it and we might pop it up on screen. So keep that in mind as we go through this here today. So first off, we've got Autumn Tesh with a 2 years of membership. That's amazing. Thank you so much for the membership. And don't forget, members and Patreon supporters, I might, depending on if this launch goes tonight or not, I might do a live stream tomorrow afternoon where we continue working on the James Webb Space Telescope in Kerbal Space Program. Hopefully finish and launch it. It should be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for those of you that are members. For those of you that are Patreon supporters, I'll be posting a link depending on how this launch goes. If not, it'll probably be some other time, maybe on Sunday. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Let's see here. Thank you again from Captain Chris. Shout out to Dr. Gus. Let's go. Let's see. It's not that weird that they haven't started the live stream yet because SpaceX tends to do only about T-10 minutes or so these days. They do really short live streams. Yeah. So hopefully it still pops up, but we will see. Let's see here. We should also mention today is unfortunately the anniversary of the Challenger accident. That's still, I still think the best way to learn about that is actually there's a really good documentary on Netflix that did a phenomenal job of restoring footage And ooh, here we sorry. In the middle of all that, we do actually, the live stream did start from SpaceX, so that's a good sign. But yeah, I know everyone, knows about the Challenger accident, but it's definitely worth watching something like that just because they did such a good job with it. So if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. But let's just keep that in mind today. This is going to be flying from the same area as Challenger did on this day. So yeah. All right, let's keep going here. This is a good question from Musical Wolves. Have the engines of the booster been replaced? Now, we don't ever really get to know specific, things like that. Like, they don't tell us, per se, what exact maintenance they do to each and every individual booster. So we don't know what exactly happened, at this point with these engines. They may have been replaced. They may have just been slightly, cleaned out and refurbished, an engine or two. But, that tends to not be what SpaceX wants to do. The quick turnaround times are not replacing engines. They're just literally, cleaning them out and getting them ready for the next flight. So as far as engines being replaced, at this point, I don't know. It's been a while since it flew, so who knows what's all happened. Let's see here. Thank you very much from Alberta 3D. Yes, and as Musical Wolves mentions too, yes, today is a little, unfortunately, the anniversary of Challenger. So, let's see. This is a good question. Oliver, actually, I probably should have read through my own article a little bit. I don't remember if this was originally supposed to go on Vega. That sounds right. Does anyone remember? I can fast forward through this stream a little bit if you guys think we're behind. I think we're all caught up. I don't remember. Oh, I am running the 4K stream, which will delay it a little bit. Let's see if it speeds up if I go to the 1080 stream. Okay. Yeah. If someone in Discord, let me know if it was Vega. I don't remember. Yeah. Okay, this is from Glenn R. Frank. Surprised they can land the booster back at Canaveral with the extra maneuvering it has to do and the retrograde orbit it has to overcome. Yeah, that's because of that light payload mass. Now, don't forget, it was only, like 2,300 kilograms or something. Pretty lightweight. So then, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, so sorry if this is a repeat. But you basically can take the upper stage. Start with the upper stage. How much work can the upper stage do? How fast can that upper stage accelerate your payload? If you have a really light payload, obviously that same upper stage can actually do a lot more work. And if you're just going into low Earth orbit as opposed to, say, geostationary transfer orbit or medium Earth orbit or an interplanetary orbit, or escape velocity, you really don't need to do as much work to get that payload into its destination. And this is just a relatively low Earth orbit destination, sun-synchronous orbit. So you can look at how much work can this do. Let's imagine that the payload has to get up to 28,000 kilometers an hour. Ignore altitude for now. Just only focus on velocity. If this can get it up to 21,000 kilometers an hour, basically a quarter of the work, then the booster doesn't have nearly as much work to do. So that means the booster has more propellant left over and more potential left over to actually be able to bring itself back down to land. And that's kind of how this all works. That's how they determine. Of course, it's cheapest, easiest for them to be able to land these things back at land as opposed to using the drone ships too. So I've got closed captions on, I guess. Yeah, so let's tune into this here. I am curious if there's some stuff that we missed, but I will be around for a while after this. I'll stream for a little bit because it's been a while, and I'll help answer more of you guys' questions. If you guys have more questions about RTLS landings and stuff, let me know.
On your screen is a live view of Falcon 9 awaiting its 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Good evening and welcome to our launch coverage of Cosmo-Skymed Second Generation FM2 for our customer Thales Alenia Space. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a production and engineering manager for Falcon here at SpaceX, and coming to you today from our SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Our payload today, Cosmo-Skymed, is the first Earth observation constellation of satellites operated for both civilian and military purposes to help monitor the environment, including the prevention and management of natural disasters. It's an Italian satellite constellation owned by the Italian Space Agency and Ministry of Defense. We'll have more on the capabilities of Cosmo-Skymed a bit later in the webcast. Now, for those of you following along, you'll know that we had to stand down from our initial attempt yesterday due to unfavorable weather. Now, unfortunately, today is not looking much better as we are currently in violation of the thick cloud layer rule and are red on the range. But we are hopeful that weather conditions will improve over the next few minutes for liftoff today. For now, let's take a moment and get a little bit more familiar with that Falcon 9 rocket that you see on your screen. Our two-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle stands 70 meters tall, which is equivalent to the wingspan of a 747 jet. Now, like many of our missions these days, the booster supporting today's flight is flying for the third time, having previously supported 2 Falcon Heavy missions in 2019, and that was STP-2 and Arabsat 6A missions. There are 3 main parts of the rocket visible on your screen, and that's the first stage, second stage, and the satellite fairing. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle are what we call the first stage, and this is the portion of the vehicle that is covered with soot from its previous flights. Now, last year, 29 of our 31 launches were flown on flight-proven first stages, or in other words, over 90% of our launches last year were on first stages that had flown before. The first stage's primary role is to accelerate all the way to the edge of space with the help of its 9 Merlin M1D engines. And then there, it will drop off the second stage, which has the payload attached. Now, the first stage will then make its way back to Earth, where we will attempt to recover it back on land today at landing zone 1, and you can see that landing zone on your screen there. Now, if you turn your attention to the section above stage 1 and that black carbon fiber inner stage, you'll see Falcon 9's second stage. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the stages will separate, and the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum engine to carry itself and the Cosmo-Skymed satellite to a polar sun-synchronous orbit. Now, the satellite is safely enclosed inside of the payload fairing, which is what you're seeing on your screen. That's that large nose cone at the very top of the rocket. Our fairing is about 40 feet tall and with a 17-foot diameter. Now, to put that size into perspective, an average fire truck is about 40 feet long and 12 feet wide, so it would just fill the fairing. As for payload mass, Falcon 9 is capable of carrying about 50,000 pounds to low Earth orbit. Now, a fire truck is a good analogy for this as well, because it can weigh about just that when it's filled with water and people. Today, our Cosmo-Skymed payload is about 5,000 pounds, or 10% of Falcon 9's total capacity. The fairing halves we are using today are flight-proven, and we'll be attempting to recover them once again when they make their way back to Earth. Now, we're just under the T-minus 12-minute mark until liftoff. The Falcon 9 team began their final checks at T-minus 2 hours. And most recently, we completed the ground team pull to proceed with propellant load and launch at T-minus 38 minutes. And we begin prop loading at T-minus 35 minutes. And Falcon 9 is a bipropellant vehicle, and that means that we use 2 propellants, and that's a fuel and an oxidizer. So for Falcon 9, we use a refined form of kerosene, or RP1, or rocket propellant 1, for our fuel. And then to burn the fuel, we need an oxidizer. Falcon 9's oxidizer is super chilled liquid oxygen, or what we call densified LOX. And that is chilled well below its boiling point, which increases its density, and that allows us to load more into the first and second stage LOX tanks. Now, currently, fuel loading is complete on the second stage, while loading continues on the first stage until about T-minus 6 minutes. Liquid oxygen is loading on both first and second stages as we speak. Now, when it's fully fueled, Falcon 9's first and second stage combine to carry over 1.1 million pounds of propellant. And we'll burn through most of that over the 8.5 minutes that it takes to land the first stage and get the second stage into its initial orbit. Now we also need an igniter to start burning the fuel and oxidizer, and for that we use the chemical TTEB, or triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane. It produces a characteristic green flash that we can sometimes see at the base of the rocket, so you can look out for that at T-minus 2 seconds right before liftoff. Now once our Merlin engines ignite, they'll begin throwing the combustion exhaust out of the engine nozzles at the base of the rocket, resulting in a push on the vehicle in the opposite direction. Now, this is a great example of Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, again, as for weather, we are keeping an eye on this. We are still currently red on the range and no go for launch at this moment. But we are hopeful that weather conditions will improve over the next few minutes for a liftoff at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, our mission today is for Cosmo-Skymed Second Generation FM2 for our customer Thales Alenia Space. The constellation is owned by the Italian Space Agency and Ministry of Defense. The dual-purpose network is composed of 4 identical satellites of the first generation, launched in orbit between 2007 and 2010, which will gradually be replaced by the second generation ones, and improving efficiency and capability in key areas such as nation security and planetary preservation. The first satellite of the second generation was launched in 2019, and today will be the second generation satellite to launch. To help us better understand the capabilities of the Cosmo-Skymed constellation, here's an explanation from the Italian Space Agency's president and head of programs.
You guys hear that? We just heard hold over the net. So this launch will be scrubbed. So we will be seeing all of this again in the future. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll let this kind of play here. But unfortunately, that is it for today. Now I can put this up. I will stick around and answer some of your guys' questions. Like I said, we have actually a lot of good questions that I'm really excited to answer. But unfortunately, the weather was just not okay for today. So the fun thing here, I'll turn this one down so you guys can actually hear in the background them kind of doing the, I'll turn this all the way up or more up so you can hear it, because it is pretty fun to hear them go over some of these conditions and some of the things they do when they defuel the rocket. So I will definitely be streaming again whenever this thing launches. I just feel like streaming. It's been a while. It's fun. I miss you guys. And this will be a fun launch to watch for sure. So hopefully, I don't know if they have a 24-hour recycle. That's one thing I'll do when Jesse comes back on and lets us know if the next opportunity is tomorrow or if it's Sunday.
Yeah,
They're planning to do a Starlink.
For another launch attempt tomorrow, Saturday, same time. RC and ground stations. We begin to coordinate those times with our partners, please.
There we go. So sounds like same time tomorrow. So I will reset this stream up for tomorrow as well. So you heard it here first. I'll still, I mean, I don't even know if we need this up anymore because we'll see it all again tomorrow, like I said. So it is scrubbed, but that doesn't mean we don't have to stop hanging out and we can answer some questions and just kind of chit chat for a little bit. I got some time here today, not trying to rush off for anything in the relatively near future. And actually, I see some really good questions. So, yeah, so thank you guys for, hanging out with me here and deciding to watch with me. It's been a long time. And like I said, I would like to try to get back into more normal launch live streams again. It's been a little bit. So, yeah, it's time to do it. It's time to have some fun. And I hope you guys have some good questions for me. So let's get at it here, my friends. All right. So, this is from Bad Boy Morales. It says, why don't they launch from California for South North orbit? I miss launches from LA. So that's a great question. I don't know why they I think it's more like they have such a smooth operating machine out there at the Cape. There's all of the booster, everything about booster, refurbishment, everything happens. They have such a good infrastructure at the Cape. If they can launch from the Cape, if the rockets, it's kind of like the difference between, launching, landing on the land or landing on the autonomous spaceport drone ship. If they can land on land, they prefer to that. And I think if they can launch from Cape Canaveral, they prefer that over Vandenberg. I think there's just some things that they are, more used to out there. Their team is more ready, and their team is a well-oiled machine at this point. So, I think that's kind of more with what has to do with it. But I'm not honestly positive why, but I kind of always assumed it was something along those lines. So, yeah. Good question. I'll see if I can actually figure out the exact reason. Dan, yes, you are correct. Like we did mention real quick that this is a repurposed side booster from a Falcon Heavy. And I think you're right. I think it is the first repurposed side booster to go into becoming a Falcon 9. Now, again, there's nothing really inherently different about the boosters themselves. They both have the same amount of engines. They both have the same everything. The main difference is the inner stage is very different between between a Falcon 9 booster and the side boosters. Will have those nose cones. So this was previously flew on the two Falcon Heavy missions that used a Block 5. Now, the funny thing is the very first Falcon Heavy mission was opposite. It used Falcon 9 side cores, and then they converted them into Falcon Heavy cores or side boosters. This is the opposite. This is a converted Falcon Heavy side booster. And then, pretty crazy. Okay, let's keep going here. You're very welcome, Gary. Thank you. This is a good question here from Dead Voter. Do you think Dragon was always intended to be returned to launch site, or the specs were decided before Block 5 made it possible? So actually, we're almost seeing the opposite of what you just said. Dragon missions these days are pretty much always going to be landed on the drone ship. So originally, I'm trying to remember, was it, you know what, you might be right. Block 5 did enable, yeah, because before Block 5, the original Dragon 1 missions were drone ship landings. And then I believe CRS-10 was the first return to launch site landing with a Block 5, if I recall. That was the first one. So then for all of Dragon 1 missions had the option of landing back at land, and doing the return to launch site landing. Dragon 2 is heavier, but also the biggest. But that's not the only reason why they actually no longer are doing return to launch site landings with Dragon anymore. The biggest reason is for crewed missions, they need to fly a shallower angle than they normally would, an angle that would make it so if they had to abort off of the rocket during certain portions of the ascent, if you were to launch too high and have to abort, you'd come back down so steep, the G-forces as you re-enter the atmosphere would get crazy. Like, it's nuts. There's a Soyuz that aborted similar to that, and they experienced something like, for a brief little bit of period of time, something like 30 Gs. And I don't think NASA wants anything near that high, so they fly a lot shallower ascent, which means that if they were to abort, they would come in more gradually through the atmosphere as it gets thicker. So they're not just coming straight in. The atmosphere is obviously a gradient. The higher up you are, the thicker the atmosphere, the lower you are, the higher up you are, the thinner, the lower you are, the thicker. So if you come at it, kind of sideways, you're going to slowly be slowed, pulling and slowed down into the atmosphere. So it's a lot more gradual. So that's why they don't do a return to launch site trajectories, because when they do a return to launch site trajectory, they do loft it up a lot more. The booster goes a lot more vertical. It doesn't go downrange that much, which puts the payload into a very lofted orbit, or a very lofted trajectory at first. And that's just not acceptable with humans. So you kind of had some things right. Yeah. That was a good thing to notice, though. Okay, Nebula, when is the next Falcon Heavy launch? There was supposed to be one last year. Yeah, there was supposed to, at the beginning of last year, I think there were 3 that were on the docket. This year, there's supposed to be 5. I'm guessing we'll probably see 2 or 3, hopefully this year. Do you guys remember what is the first one of those? The first one of those, I think, is going to be something weird where they... I think that might be the one where they ditch the core on purpose and land the 2 boosters downrange. So that's like the maximum performance, just shy of expending the entire booster. And frankly, it's darn close to the same amount of payload capacity. If you ditch the core but land the side boosters, you're getting really close to an expended launch capability. It's pretty amazing. So, all right. If an object leaves one sphere of influence and enters another, is it right to say that the object is in orbit of the new body? It's only in orbit of a new body if it's in orbit. So, you can be well within the sphere of influence, where that's the primary sphere of influence. Say you're going to Mars and you get within Mars' sphere of influence where that gravitational body has by far the most influence. if you don't slow down to get into Mars orbit, you are just doing a flyby. So for a little bit of time, that will be the strongest sphere of influence, will be that planetary body. But if you don't slow down, you actually have to, you have to match the orbit. You have to slow down enough that you get, caught into an orbit. Then you would be in orbit of that new body. So it all depends on, if you're what you're in orbit of. You're always going to be in orbit of something, and that's yeah. Oh, I better change the title here. Scrubbed, don't watch. Scrubbed, don't watch. Boom. Sorry for all those that are sad, but that is just the reality of it. All right, let's keep going here. From Nikolai. Do you think that once Starship will become operational and capable of regular Starlink version 2 launches, will Falcon 9 stop launching them? Yes, I think Starlink is going to be one of the very first things to go up on Starship, and as soon as they can safely and reliably launch from Starship, I think they will be doing that. I think there's going to be a more of a crossover in time with Falcon 9 and Starship, where they're both operational rockets, than I think Elon probably would want to admit. I don't think he's probably out there thinking, we can get Starship online and we can stop flying Falcon 9 in a year. And I just don't think that's the case. I think there's going to be a lot of customers that will still require, especially NASA customers, Department of Defense. It'll be a long time. It took Falcon 9 a long time to get certified for all of those things, including human spaceflight. I will be surprised. I would be shocked if Falcon 9, retired before the end of by 2030. I do not see that happening. I see the two flying in parallel together quite a bit. Especially at first, Falcon 9 is going to stay very busy, I think. It'll also take a while for the market to really catch up. And I don't think SpaceX will be able to really afford to make Starship that much cheaper than Falcon 9 until it really, truly is rapidly reusable. Until they can truly recover both stages, reintegrate them, refuel them, and boop, take them back off, I don't think it's necessarily going to be cheaper. So, yeah. All right, let's keep going here. I went over the 4 main types of rocket engine cooling, but I know of minor ones. If you know anything about them, could you explain them? Are transpiration and dump cooling? So transpirational cooling, I don't know if they're used inside rockets. Honestly, it's basically transpirational cooling. If I recall, transpirational cooling really needs to be applied to something on the exterior and wicked away. It's almost like it's like ablating with a liquid, basically. The same principle as ablation, where it takes the heat away with it. Is my understanding of transpirational cooling. Now, I might be wrong. I'm always happy to be wrong about things, as long as someone lets me know that I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that transpirational cooling, I don't know of anywhere where it could be used in an engine. Transpirational sweating is, thanks, Discord. Sweating is transpirational cooling. It's the leaving of the system that takes the heat with it, right? And I can't think of how transpirational cooling would be used inside an engine. Now, I might be wrong. And mods, if you see 45 sec, comment on this further, that'd be great. And I don't also know too much I don't know anything about dump cooling. So yeah, good. I'm always happy to learn, though. I did not come across either of those in my, in my research. George says, Elon said 1 launch a week in 22. Crazy stuff. Does feel like they're trying for that. I mean, that is genuinely the pace that they're starting for the year, which is absolutely wild. Thank you so much to Alan. I really, really appreciate that. That means a lot. And again, don't forget, guys, just because this was a super chat, you don't have to super chat. Most of these questions coming today are just picked up from the YouTube chat there. This is Connor says, what happens to Falcon second stage on a mission like this? It'll end up being basically, it'll be in orbit, and then they will deorbit it since it is in low Earth orbit, it should have plenty of margin left over. They will intentionally deorbit it into somewhere where it is safe to do so, most likely in the Indian Ocean. let's see. Oh, Andrew says that we've got some. That's funny. We've got some problems in our description. I'll fix that for tomorrow. Okay, well, I'll fix it tomorrow. It's just a copy paste from the website. Cool. All right, let's keep going here. This is from, again, 45 seconds. Also, tell me that open dual expander cycle engines rival full flow stage. I don't know. Well, see, the big thing is with dual expander cycle. No, with any expander cycle. We'll talk about this in the video that I'm working on right now. The big deal with expander cycle is you are limited by the total amount of heat in the system, period. I don't care if it's dual expander or single expander cycle. You're limited by how much heat is available. Heat is energy. And it's at some point, the cool thing about full flow that I'm realizing is when you look at how much enthalpy, how much energy needs to be used to spin the pumps, to power those pumps, to get them up to the pressure, to get them inside the engine. You know, you have a certain amount of work that needs to be done. You say, especially if you want to get up to thrust levels, 300 bar, 330 bar inside the combustion chamber, there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done to spin those pumps fast enough. The way that you spin those pumps in a turbo pump engine is by spinning a turbine. So by taking gas, hot, high pressure gas, and shooting it through a turbine and converting that pressure and heat into work, into spinning the turbine. Now, there's a point at which any expander cycle engine just simply runs out of energy. There's just simply not enough heat available to actually run it through a turbine to spin the pumps up to those types of pressures and to those types of velocities and that much power that's required. Now, the cool thing about full flow is that you still require that same amount of energy and work, and enthalpy is the actual true thing that it requires. And what's neat is because you're flowing, the mass flow through both of the turbines is essentially double compared to a normal closed cycle. It actually lowers the temperature in half, basically, which is really cool. So, yeah, let's keep going here. This is from Rick. Return to launch site must take a lot more fuel than a drone ship landing. How do they determine which they're going to do? So, it takes more fuel on the rocket. So again, I kind of talked about this yesterday. I'll probably talk about it again tomorrow during the stream. But you literally can just look at how heavy is your payload, how much and how fast you need to get your payload going. So if you have a light payload, that means the second stage can actually do a lot more work, because obviously if a stage has to push around something that's 2,500 kilograms versus something that's 20,000 kilograms, obviously that's a lot more mass to push around. So that same second stage won't be able to accelerate the payload up fast enough, compared or relatively the same. So then you have to look at, okay, the second stage can get it up to 20,000 kilometers or 20,000 kilometers an hour. Or we'll stick with we'll say 7.5 kilometers a second to get into orbit. And let's say that that the second stage can actually do 6 kilometers a second of work, because it's a really light payload and it's going just to a low Earth orbit. No big deal. That means the booster just does not have to do that much work. The booster could be capable, if they flung that little tiny payload, the booster could probably do 3 or 4 kilometers per second. But since this thing's doing so much of the work, it doesn't need to use all of the fuel that would normally be used to put something into orbit. So that means it actually has a lot of fuel remaining to be able to turn it around, boost back to the Cape, so cancel out all of its horizontal velocity, and then still do an entry burn and a landing burn. So yeah, pretty cool. It does take more fuel on the rocket, but it's a lot cheaper than operating an entire Marine fleet. The rocket's going to be full of fuel anyway. So yeah, let's see here. This is from Alan B. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, Tim. I enjoy your content most of all the rocket space. Scott Manley and your buddy Joe are awesome too. Thanks, man. Well, you're welcome, Alan. I'm glad you guys are. I'm really glad that you guys watch and enjoy the videos I make. I like making videos, so I'm glad that there's people out there that like watching my videos, because it's what I like to do. John, how's it going, John? How are you? Long time fan, John. On the way up, 1 or 2 lost. Landing it depends, but not really losing any restarted engine and still land. Wait, on the way up, 1 or 2 lost. We're talking about engines here. Landing it depends, but not really losing any restarted engines and still. I think this is a question. On the way up, if they can lose 1 or 2 engines. Was this in response to something? Sorry, I'm totally missing something. But I think that the point of this was basically, yes, the Falcon 9 could actually lose an engine or 2 on the way up. And then depending, there are a set 3 engines that can relight and do their entry burn and landing burn because those are the ones connected to that ignition fluid TTEB. I'm actually kind of surprised that they don't V that off and have different, like this day and age with how vital landing is and how baked it is into their into the mission and everything. You'd almost think they'd bother plumbing TTEB into 2 more outer engines. I don't know, but all right, let's keep going here. Why can't they just use a bunch of tiny cheap boosters that are so simple they can just land in the ocean and be refurbished? Well, that's from Mr. Transponson. The big deal. The space shuttle tried to reuse solid rocket boosters. They fished them out of the ocean and refurbished them, and then repacked them full of propellant. At the end of the day, solid rocket fuel and boosters, they always seem cheap. They always seem simple. But really, I've never seen one case where a solid rocket booster is actually cheaper than a rocket, and a liquid-fueled rocket, especially when it comes to reusing. When it comes to reusing one, the refurbishment process is still pretty intense. It's a lot better just to not get your rocket wet in the first place. Yeah. John, awesome, is celebrating 3 months of membership. You and the little one are rocking your R7 and RD171 shirts. That's awesome. I love a family watching stuff together. Thank you so much, John, for the support and the double support for being a membership and and for rocking the merch with your family. That's super, super cool. Those Soviet shirts are honestly they're my new favorite shirts. Well, and that hoodie. By the way, we're updating the hoodie already, version 2, because everyone's sad that the hoodie sold out. In real life, none of these shipped with these stock strings. The photo shoot was messed up, and they got like a prototype one that didn't have. They have like really cool strings in real life, but we're actually updating it. We're gonna add some Velcro patches. We're trying to make it look more and more like the original S-1030A spacesuit that was used on the first 4 space shuttle missions. We're trying to make it look more and more like that. So we're actually including some green Velcro patches so you guys can also put patches. And we're going to do some black. We're going to do these things in black like patches too. It's just going to look a little bit better yet. And this is already like my favorite thing I own. But yeah, those will be coming back in stock. Those are like currently almost entirely out of stock, but we are working on that as we speak. But yeah, I'm just stoked that you guys like these shirts because these are my favorite shirts in the shop lately. I just think they're super, super, super cool. But then again, I might be biased because I may or may not have gotten completely obsessed with Soviet era stuff during the making of that video. All right, let's see. From Brian Cunningham. When a launch does have an issue and the payload is lost, is SpaceX responsible for the payload cost back to the customer? So there is actually insurance for rockets and for payloads. And if something goes wrong, I'm pretty sure that in most cases that's what the insurance is for, because it is, at the end of the day, it is a calculated risk, right? You have the reliability of a vehicle. What are the odds that our payload does not get to where it needs to go and it's lost and we have to build another one? That is something that an insurance underwriter can literally just look at it and go, well, we'll cover you for, we'll take that odd, we'll take that bet. Because at the end of the day, an insurer just literally looks at the odds of something happening and then pads themselves that if they do this enough, eventually the house always wins, right? So they just have to basically bet, charge more. Like, so for this one customer that's flying 1 or 2 satellites, they can afford this little extra bit of insurance, right? In the unlikely event that they lose it, the insurer has to pay out. But if the insurer still is ahead of the whole grand scheme and insures hundreds of launches a year, then they come out ahead. So, yeah. Let's see here. Ian Chase, always love watching a SpaceX launch when the everyday astronaut is providing it. You definitely bring space down to Earth for everyday people like me. Well, thank you so much, Ian. How are you? Thank you for saying hi. And again, just happy to be here with you guys. Super Cleary Photo, still one of my favorite names for some reason. I just love your name. It's so great. I've missed your live streams and have loved your product content. Here's to the Buran documentary fund. Well, thank you. Okay, so what I want to do someday, I have caught the bug. So for this year, I'm trying to focus the first bit of the year, or for the majority of this year, or maybe all of this year. I'm trying to produce at least one video a month. We're on track for February's video, which is really in depth actually. It's going to be incredible. Like I said, we're really going. So remember the little section of the Raptor video that talks about cycle types. We're getting even deeper into engine cycles with this one, and we're really showing you how it all works, drawing it all out, diving deeper into it all. It's like 55 minutes, almost an hour worth of just how to power a rocket engine. A deep dive on all of the engine cycles. It's going to be very similar to the last video we produced about why rocket engines don't melt. Just a little bit more. This one sounds more intimidating, but I think we're doing it in a way that is not going to be intimidating. I think you guys are going to love it. But eventually, by the end of the year, next year in 2023, I really, really want to spend like a full month in Russia and also get down to Kazakhstan and see. I want to see an R7 launch, or a Soyuz launch. And I want to go find the boosters. I also want to do a Saving Buran documentary, and I also want to go see if there's a way to find all of some of the old parts from the N1 that are around places. But that's my goal. And maybe when I do that, I will have to raise some money for that, because if I spend a month somewhere with a film crew, it won't be cheap. But it'll be super cool. It'll be very worth it. I think it'd be very fun. Liquid Chris, how are you? The weather is not okay here in Iowa either. No, it is not. Well, you know what? 10 degrees is feeling quite nice these days. It was like minus 20 the other day. Sorry, those are Fahrenheit. So like minus 15-ish centigrade. And I don't remember what the other thing I said. Cold. It's cold. Let's see. This is from Bob. Are the rules? Thank you very much, Bob. Are the rules regarding weather too stringent? I personally have no idea. That's not my job to analyze the risks associated with flying into bad weather storms and the visibility necessary for proper range and all those types of things. The good thing is I think that with this new frequency of launches, there is going to be more data now saying like, hey, maybe they can start expanding that envelope a little bit. They also have Elon's complained in the past that the exclusion zones are way too big, and the like NOTAMs are huge around a launch, and he's complained saying it'd be really nice if they expanded that envelope a little bit. So maybe something maybe something will come up someday. This is again, it's all data driven, guys. Everything in spaceflight is safety and data first, right? So they can always take a look at all the data and say, hey, how are we actually doing here? Okay. This is a question from Normanal. Great name. Any new music coming up? I do have a little zip zapper that I made the other day. I'll let you guys listen to this for a second. It's interesting. It's a lot like dirtier than my other stuff. By the way, it's all guitars. I know it sounds like a synth. It's all guitars. There you go. There's a little teaser. The song gets weird. It gets like really dark, and I don't know about dark, but just really dirty sounding. But yeah, there you go. That's a little teaser. Let's see. Bine wants to know, do you have a sense of how many Raptor 2 engines have been produced? Do you think B5 will be all Raptor 2? I don't know about B5, but the next booster will have to use Raptor 2. I don't think they have enough Raptor 1s out in existence anymore to fulfill another booster. So, how many Raptor 2 engines have produced? No idea. Somewhere between at least one, probably at least two. I think we've seen 2 on a stand now. Between 2 and 1,000, but I would guess something more like a dozen, 5 or 10, or I don't know. And I don't know where they're at in the, how many they've actually been testing and all that stuff, and how many are certified, ready to go, and show up down to the Boca. But that will be the big sign, is when we start seeing stuff show up to Boca, they're getting closer. But I don't think the next booster will have to wait for Raptor. And that's kind of one of those, when Elon was saying, it all depends on, we could go bankrupt if we can't get Raptor 2 figured out, production on Raptor 2. I think it's a lot of that. Is like, if they're planning to be producing, by the time you fly a booster, having 30 plus 33-ish engines on a booster, you really, and if you're flying them often, especially as you're trying to figure it out, as you might lose some, you are really going to have to be producing a lot of Raptor 2s. So, yeah. Let's see here. When is the next Falcon Heavy launch? We talked about this a second ago. I don't know if we got a date, what they're targeting. Discord, can you guys let me know when the next one is? I forget. But it is hopefully in the next couple months. This is from Julie. Why does SpaceX's NVAC engine sometimes grow bright yellow and sometimes orange? Julie, I have the perfect video for you. I hope you're still here. This is the video I made most recently. So do me a favor, get over on YouTube and type in why don't rocket engines melt? Boom. Click on this, and guess what? We have a whole section on this right here, the actual radiative cooling specifically on the Merlin vacuum engine. We talk exactly about why it glows. So I'm not even going to answer it, unfortunately. I am going to require you to do a little Google foo, type in some stuff, and look up why don't rocket engines melt. It's the most recently published video on my channel, and I promise I think it's my best video to date, because it's pretty quick paced, and we just kind of did some stuff different. Really good 3D animations from Casper Stanley. I'm just really excited about this video, and I think the next one's going to be taking what we did here up like 3 more notches. You guys are going to love it. So there you go. Self shout out there, unfortunately, but that is the answer, Julie. But it is radiatively cooled niobium. That's the answer there. Yeah. Okay. Net March, the Falcon Heavy launch. Net. So no earlier than launching in March, and that's USS F-44. There we go. Thank you so much, Kronos. Really appreciate that. John Depker, awesome. I'll be working tomorrow, so I'll miss the launch, but that's okay. Just want to say thank you. Victoria, my little one, and I really love our t-shirts from the Russian Engine Rocket Collection. There's another one. Thank you guys that's so cool. Thank you guys so much for the support. That is awesome. Yeah, that really makes me happy. I love knowing there's families out there that watch this stuff for fun. That is so cool. From Parker Imrie, Vandenberg is prepping NROL 87 next week. Going to see it. Tell Scott Manley I'll give him a ride. Might be why this is in Florida. That could be. I don't know if they would have that kind of foresight though. When they book these things, it's not some quick shuffle of the manifest last minute. It's like months or years in advance. I just don't know if they'd see those two things conflicting with each other, because normally just be like, all right, we'll launch that one and then we'll launch this one at the same pad. But maybe there is something about that, but it seems a little bit unlikely. Why from Cairo, why do launches depend on weather? Well, lightning can do damage to rockets, as we saw with Apollo 12. Some damage, more damage to electronics. Soyuz has gotten hit by lightning like crazy, and it doesn't seem to care. But, there's that. There's also one of the biggest concerns, specifically for the Falcon 9. One of the biggest concerns is it's such a fine rocket, meaning it's one of the skinniest, longest rockets. So the fineness ratio for how wide to how long it is the fineness ratio. As it flies up, as it gets into certain portions of the atmosphere, especially like the jet streams, there's certain layers where the wind will be flowing at, 100 kilometers one way, and then literally only a couple hundred meters later, it's flying. It's going completely the opposite direction, and those can actually snap a rocket. So that's one of the big things. Those wind shears can do a lot of damage, and technically, it was a compounding issue with Challenger. Challenger likely would have survived even with that leaky gasket had it not gone through a pretty heavy wind shear and strong crosswind in the upper atmosphere that forced one of the boosters to kind of yaw more than normal to fight against, to keep it on the correct heading, which then flexed that joint that was already weak and caused it to spew out even more hot rocket exhaust onto the orange fuel tank and the strut that held it. So, those wind shears can be a big problem, but also just overall visibility. I don't know what the exact criteria is, but, freezing clouds. I mean, it's there's a lot of reasons. So yeah, same with this manual. Why do they stop a launch for clouds? Because you really just don't want to be flying a rocket through those conditions most of the time. Hey, thank you so much to Tim for becoming a member. Stay tuned for a link. Hopefully, when we figure it out. Like I said, I probably won't stream tomorrow, Kerbal tomorrow, but maybe on Sunday now, just depending on how things go. So, this is from R648. Could you also upload videos on Odyssey? They have a really good YouTube sync feature too. I don't necessarily see the point to me. I mean, I know it's probably really easy. I just don't quite get the point of. I mean, I could try. I could try it. I don't know. It just seems like more work to me. I know if it has a sync feature, it'll automatically do it, but it just still seems. I don't know. I don't know what the point is when there's YouTube for free too. Like if they're right there. I don't know. Sounds a little bit like dividing my audience, but I have considered it. Yolota, when will your Falcon 9 models be available to buy? Really looking forward to having one. When it's done. Manufacturing stuff is not easy. Elon is right about that. He has said that a lot of times, that manufacturing things is extremely hard. We're learning a lot of lessons. We're fixing a lot of little things in the model before we get it sent out and before we get it finalized and ready for shipment. I'm still hoping that maybe this spring we'll have it ready to go, but we will see. How many boosters does SpaceX have, and how many new ones are they producing each year? Let's see. Who has the best graphic of that these days? Is it Brendan that has those graphics? Who does the Falcon 9 graphics these days? Discord, remind me. Brendan does the ones for Starbase, but who does the ones for Falcon 9? Someone's been doing a really good job of Falcon 9 fleet. We'll see. I'll wait to hear from Discord, but I'll show you that as soon. I mean, I think it's about a dozen or 15 or something. All right. Jose says, how do they decide when to retire a Falcon 9 or to build a new one? I don't know if they quite have pushed that limit yet. The only time that a Falcon 9 is really retired to date is because it was not Block 5, so it's an older design rocket that was not really meant for this much reuse. But these days, they haven't got to the point of actually retiring a booster yet because they still seem to be holding up quite well. So, yeah. I guess they don't quite know. But at some point, the lifespan is just, you get metal fatigue, you get some other parts in the refurbishment process and all those things just probably become considered not worth it anymore. But I don't know what the exact decision is, and I don't think they know yet either. So they're getting there, though. Oliver, how does that work on Super Heavy? I don't think that a fully fueled Starship and a 100-ton payload are the exact definition of a light payload. Well, so you're talking about return to launch site landings. So that's they kind of bake that in. They know that for now they have to land on land for quick refurbishment and quick viability of the booster. The booster, it's hard to explain how big and powerful and capable that rocket is. It is. I mean, it will dwarf a Falcon 9 like you would not believe, and it has substantially more efficient engines as well. So, really, I mean, if they were to do downrange landings, it could probably get 30% more payload or something like that. But if they're meeting their payload, it all comes down to like what is the cheapest thing per launch? Is it actually cheaper to operate a huge, oil thing and get it back to the Cape somehow, blah, blah, or the, launch site somehow or whatever? Or is it easier just to land it back on land? For a vehicle this size, I'm very much guessing it's going to be cheaper to land it back on land than to try to have that much more payload capability, because where's the profit incentive? Who's needing more than 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit right now, right? So if they're able to do 100 metric tons with the quickest viable option for a quick turnaround and quick relaunch, then where's the market? Maybe if someday there is someone that's like, hey, if you guys can fly 150 tons for me, and I'll pay you a lot more. I mean, it's all about trade-offs. Rockets are always, a giant engineering compromise. Let's see here. Martin, CSG-2 is an Earth observation satellite, but what sort of data will it be collecting? We have a good rundown here of that in our of our pre-launch preview that I believe I have also linked in the description below. But it talks about here what exactly what instruments are on here. So give that a read. Take a look at it below in the description below. Give that a read. Hopefully that answers all of your questions, because it's a handful of things. How can I explain a Falcon 9 rocket to my friends and family? Well, I've got a video for that too. If you do Falcon 9 versus Starship on YouTube, search that, and you click on this complete guide to Starship, Falcon 9 versus Starship, what's new, what's different. I promise this video will give you enough explanation to not only know it yourself, but then to maybe hopefully get your friends and family excited about it too. But we go through all of the different specs, all of the, the payload capacity and everything of each of these vehicles. Now notice that we quoted 150 metric tons to low Earth orbit. SpaceX says 100 plus. But interestingly, in their payload users guide a year and a half ago or two, whenever that was, they said it could take I think 23 or 26. 21,000 right there. 21,000 kilograms to geostationary transfer orbit. So you can actually work backwards from that number, and we come up with that it can basically do 156,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit. So that's how we came up with that number, because they always just say 100 plus, and it's still in flux. But the point being, it's going to be able to do a lot more than Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9. So yeah, I would say just watch this video, and hopefully you have all of the knowledge necessary there, Yesh, to get your friends and family excited about it. Maybe have them watch it too. That should give them a pretty healthy rundown on how they work and why they have different engineering decisions and all that stuff. All right. Thank you so much, Senator. Yeah, I actually might be trying to. I get to go watch my friend's band play tonight, and that's going to be very fun. They're playing in a very open space that there's not going to be very many people at, hopefully, and it's going to be fun. So I will take you up on that. Thank you very much. And JD, thank you so much for your generous tip. I'm going to get out of here, though, because we'll be doing this all again tomorrow. So if you missed me, you get 3 days in a row of me trying to watch a launch with you guys. So hopefully you don't miss me too much. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. There's a lot of exciting things coming up here in the near future. I hope you guys are ready for an awesome 2022. So thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Goodbye, everybody.